When I first opened Fusion 360, it looked really intimidating. Menus everywhere, buttons everywhere, functions, and the truth is Fusion 360 it's a very complex and very powerful software. But if you want to make some simple things, you only need a few simple tools. So in this video I'm gonna take you from never using Fusion 360 to having something that you can be proud of and something that you can use in your toolbox. So by the end of this video you'll design a clay cutter from scratch, even if you've never opened Fusion 360 before. Before we start, let's talk about the interface very quickly. When you open Fusion 360 for the first time, you'll see a lot of buttons. Don't try to understand them all, you don't need to. At the top you have the toolbar. This is where all your tools live, and today we're only going to use a few of them, so don't worry about all of them. On your left hand side you have the browser, which holds all your layers, let's call them. You can see your origin here, you can see your sketches, you can see your bodies, and you can see other stuff in the future. Now if you don't see something, you have this little eye that you can click and things disappear and appear. Same with sketches. So let's look at this corner. This is your home area. This is where you can view things from the top. You can click on this to view it from the side, from the back. Just play around with it. You can also grab it and move it the way you want. And if you ever get lost, just simply click home and it'll take you home. Let's talk about how we move around in Fusion 360. There's really only 2 buttons on the mouse and 1 button on the keyboard that you want to use at the beginning. So one of the most important and most used buttons is your scroll wheel. This zooms in and out, and you always need to use this to have a look quickly, have a look in that corner, have a look in the other corner. Remember, when you scroll in, it will always zoom in towards where your mouse is positioned. So if you want to look at this corner, scroll into this corner. If you want to look at that corner, move your mouse there and scroll into that corner. That's how you zoom in and out. Another really important button is pressing down on your scroll button. So when you press down on your scroll button, you see the little arrow changes, and that grabs it and you can move it around anywhere you want. When you leave it, it's there. If you want to scroll in, if you want to grab it, you use the same button. 1 scrolls, 1 grabs. And then using these 2, if you hold shift and press the button, you see the little arrow turns into something. I don't know what that is, but that means you can move your mouse around and you can turn your objects into space and see it from every point, every side you want. Okay? Now if you ever get lost, if you ever, let's say, you put it there and you zoom in and you can't find your object, you don't know where your object is, you see it's there somewhere, you simply go back to home and that's your object. So this is pretty much all the interface you need to know at the moment. Like I said, you have the toolbar here with all the tools that you can use. You have the browser where you have your bodies, and you have the sketches. If you don't see the sketch, you simply click and see the sketch. Same way you make the body disappear by clicking the eye, and the body disappear, and you can make the sketch disappear by clicking the sketch. And that's it. That's all the tools you need to get going. It's almost like you're trying to learn how to play the piano. You don't learn how to play an entire piece of music. You learn Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and you only learn the notes that are required to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. You don't go and play the whole thing. You don't go and learn harmonics, and you don't learn pentatonics, and you don't learn chords, and you don't learn any of that. You learn little notes one by one. Don't worry how complex this whole thing looks. Just learn a few things and you will be okay. So let's make your first object. Let's make the first thing that you will use in your life. So I'm focusing on clay cutters because this is one of the first things you will print on your 3D printer. This is why a lot of makers buy their printers to make their own things in the house. And this is one of the simplest things to make. So you make that by clicking creating a sketch, and when you click create a sketch, it will ask you where you want to create your sketch. The same thing you can do by holding shift and clicking the middle mouse. You can move things around and you can look at what plane you want to create the sketch. So you can make it on XZ, you can make it on YZ, or you can make it on YX. I want to make it on YX, so simply I'm gonna click the YX plane and create my first clay cutter. Now I've made a few round ones, circle ones. I want to make your first cutter a bit more fun. So let's make something like a teardrop, and these are the tools that you can use in your sketch. A sketch essentially is like a piece of paper on a 2D plane that you can draw on, and you don't have a pencil or you don't have a paintbrush. You just have lines and tools that modify lines. So you would have a straight line, you have a square, a circle, a feet point spline, you have a mirror, this is a fillet, this is a trim tool, this is an offset. This is a really important tool in creating clay cutters, and that's pretty much it. You only need a few of these, and you'll see how easy it is to use them. First of all, I'm gonna start with a line, a simple line from the middle of the sketch. I'm gonna click it here and drag it up, and you see you get two options. You get the how many degrees, so you can do 100 degrees, 180 degrees, 90 degrees, 0 degrees, whatever degrees you want to do it. And then you have the length of the line in millimeters. So in this case I want to do it at 50 millimeters, so I'm going to leave it there. You can also type in your values. So if you go up here and then you type 50 mil, they will send it to 50 millimeters. If you hit enter, now you have a 50 millimeter line. You also have a measurement here that you can later on double click and change it to 40 if you want to, or make it 50 again. Okay, so that's a very simple line. Now using the feet point spline, you can simply click one point and you drag it somewhere, click it again, and then you drag it to the next point and click it again, and then you hit enter. Now this gives me this little round shape, and you also have 3 points that you can adjust later on. So how you adjust these points? You can grab it, you can grab one point from here and then move it left to right. That's gonna create different version of that line. You don't have to work too much with this. You can move the point, you can squeeze it, and even if you squeeze it, you can turn it, and you'll see it'll create something. Okay, I think that would be a nice shape for me at the moment. So now I want to create mirror of this line on the other side to make the object symmetric. So I will do that by clicking the mirror button, and that's going to give me these options. So on objects, I want to select this one because this is the object I want to create a mirror of. And then mirror line, I want to create the line I just made in the middle. And I simply click that and say OK. And now we have this thing. If we delete the mirror line, we don't need it anymore. We have this object, which is 50 millimeter high and whatever light is. Now let me show you another really nice button which we can use in this. We don't have to, but you can. So I'm talking about this fillet. The way this fillet works, you click it. Once you have it, you have to select two lines. So I will do it by selecting this line and then selecting this line. And that gives me a fillet of whatever size you want. So I can go and make it smaller. And the reason I'm doing this is because a very sharp turn in your clay cutter is not very good. Because when you cut your clay using this cutter, that sharp corner tends to break off, tends to stick in the cutter and break off. So that's why I give it a little bit of fillet, not much, just this much, and then hit enter. Okay, so now what we have is this teardrop of a earring. I would call it teardrop, whatever. So how do we turn this into clay cutter, something ready for 3D printing? We do that by double clicking one of the lines. It doesn't matter where you double click, as long as you double click the line. And as long as these lines are connected to each other, they will be selected, all of them. And then simply offset by minus 0.42. The reason this 0.42 number is there is because that's the default line width on my 3D printer. If your 3D printer is using let's say 0.6 millimeter nozzle, which is rare, or 0.2 if you want to have a sharp, like a really sharp cutter, then use the number that works for you. But most people use 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and the default setting would be 0.42 millimeters on the line width. So that's why we use 0.42. So once we set minus 0.42, we just simply click OK, and we have another line that goes around this. And by doing that, we have a section that we can later extrude. But we're not ready for that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another wall of 0.42 from the same line that gives our cutter a bit of strength, so it's not too flimsy when we use it. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to double click the line we've created, and we're going to offset it again by minus 0.84, which is double the original line width, the default line width. Okay, so now we have two lines, one 0.42, which is going to be our cutting edge, and then we're going to have another one which is at 0.84, which is double, so we do a double wall. We don't really need to do this, but I find that if you don't do an extra wall on your cutters, it becomes flimsy, and sometimes when you press it, it just moves slightly. So we want to do another wall for the sake of making it very steady. And there's one more thing we need to do in this sketch. We need to do one more line, so one more offset, and we're gonna call it -3. Okay, so that will give us a place to hold the cutter from. So when you work with it, you can just have something steady and sturdy to grab it from. Okay, so now we're done with the sketch. We finished with all the sketching things, and we just say finish sketch. If you work on bigger projects in the future, it's a good thing to keep in mind. You can rename your sketch. So if you go to where your sketch is, you can simply click the sketch, right click it, and you can just say rename. Here, don't worry about any of that. Just say rename and just call it teardrop sketch, or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it teardrop. Let's say like that, teardrop. Okay, so now you see in my sketches I have the clear teardrop sketch, and once I have the sketch, then you can start modifying. So one thing I want to do is extrude my cutting edge. So what that means is, you see this button here, it's called extrude. Extrude will take part of a sketch and create a 3D extrusion out of it. So in my case, I want to click not the lines, I want to click the wall in the middle of the lines, and you go to this button called extrude, and it's gonna ask you straight away how much you want to extrude, the distance. And for clay cutters I normally use 19 millimeters, and I choose that distance because my wife used to have long nails, and when I made cutters before, smaller ones, smaller than 19, about 15, I used to make them 15 mil high, and her nails used to touch the outside of the cutting area. So sometimes when she made a slab of clay and she would touch, she wouldn't be able to cut next to it. So that prevents you from accidentally making mistakes, basically. So you see, once we extrude this this shape, once we have this shape, the first time you do that, I don't know why Fusion does this, the sketch disappears, you see? So you simply go back to see your sketch, you just click the eye and your sketch comes back. Okay? Next, I want to extrude the reinforcement wall. So I'll do that exactly the same. I'll click the wall in my sketch, and I'm gonna say extrude again, and this time I'm gonna go 16 millimeters. That gives me this 3 millimeter cutting edge, and this is okay for pretty much anything. If you wanna make, even for Play-Doh, my daughter steals these cutters and use them. She's using them for Play-Doh, but this 3 millimeter gives you enough space to cut clean into your polymer clay. Okay, and now we have that shape. We can simply extrude the next one. So we're going to extrude this by 3 millimeters. Okay, so that will give you the holding bit. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the first for your first clay cutter in Fusion 360. If you've never used Fusion 360, remember there's only a few things you need to use. There's only a few toolbars, there's only a few buttons, and if you try to do a few things like this, you will get good at it pretty soon. Once you make 5 cutters, you already know step by step how to make it. If this video helped you and you feel less scared of Fusion 360, give it a like. It really helps the channel. And if you want more simple, beginner-friendly projects like this, please subscribe. And thank you for watching, and go make something. See you in the next one.